Hello everyone, welcome to Roy Digital Children Teaching Center. Today we are going to begin a very interesting chapter from class 8 history from trade to territory. Have you ever wondered how British who came to India just for trade became ruler of our country? Well, this chapter tells us that story. So let's begin. Aurangzeb was one of the most powerful Mughal emperors, but after his death in 1707, the Mughal empire started to break apart. The big empire became weak, and many subadars like governors and zamindars like landlords started behaving like independent kings. They began making their own decisions and stopped listening to the empire. As the empire weakened and there was no strong ruler to control the entire country. This gave the East India Company a chance to slowly take control of different parts of India. Aurangzeb was the last of the powerful Mughal ruler. He established control over a very large part of the territory that is now known as India. After his death in 1707, many Mughal governors, subadars, and big zamindars began asserting their authority and establishing regional kingdoms. As powerful regional kingdoms emerged in various parts of India, Delhi could no longer function as an effective center. By the second half of the 18th century, however, a new power was emerging on the political horizon, the British. Did you know that the British originally came a small trading company and were reluctant to acquire territories? How then did they come to be master of a vast empire? In this chapter, you will see how this came about. So, here you can see the picture, and the picture said that after Aurangzeb there was no powerful Mughal ruler, but the Mughal emperor continued to be symbolically important. In fact, when a massive rebellion against British rule broke out in 1857, Bahadur Shah Jafar, the Mughal emperor at that time, was seen as a natural leader. Once the revolt was put down by the company, Bahadur Shah Jafar was forced to leave the kingdom and his son were shot in cold blood. Here you can see a route map. The routes to India in the 18th century. Here you can see how British came to India by using the water transport. Okay. And now we'll discuss our next topic, that is East India Company comes east. The East India Company was a British trading company and it got permission from Queen Elizabeth in 16 to trade with India and other eastern countries. They wanted to buy spices, cotton, silk and sell them in Europe at high prices. But they were not alone. Other European powers like Portuguese, Dutch and French also came to trade, and this caused many wars between the companies. Each one wanted to become the richest and control the trade. In 16th century, the East India Company acquired a charter from the ruler of England, Queen Elizabeth I, granting the sole right to trade with the East. This meant that no other trading group in England could compete with the East India Company. With this charter, the company could venture across the ocean looking for new lands from which it could buy goods at a cheap price and carry them back to Europe to sell at higher price. The company did not have to fear competition from other English trading companies. Mercantile trading companies in those days made profit primarily by excluding competition so that they could buy cheap and sell dear. Okay. Now here you can see the word mercantile. Now we'll know the meaning of mercantile. Mercantile means a business enterprise that makes profit primarily through trade, buying goods, cheap and selling them at a higher price. The royal charter, however, could not prevent other European powers from entering the eastern markets. By the time the first English ships sailed down the west coast of Africa, round the Cape of Good Hope, and crossed the Indian Ocean, the Portuguese had already established their presence in the west coast of India and their base in Goa. In fact, it was Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese explorer, who had discovered this sea route to India in 1498. By the early 17th century, the Dutch too were exploring the possibilities of trading in the Indian Ocean. Soon, the French traders arrived on the scene. The problem was that all the companies were interested in buying the same things, the fine qualities of cotton, silk produced in India and had a big market in Europe. Pepper, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon too were in great demand. Competitions among the European companies inevitably pushed up the price at these goods could be purchased, and these reduced the profits that could be earned. So, the only way the trading companies could flourishing was by eliminating rival competitors. The urge to secure markets therefore led to fierce battle between the trading companies. Through the 17th and 18th century, they regularly sank each other's ships, blocked routes, and prevented rival ships from moving with supplies of goods. Trade was carried on with arms, and trading posts were protected through fortifications. This effort to fortify settlements and carry on profitable trade also led to intense conflict with local rulers. The company therefore found it difficult to separate trade from politics. Let us see how this happened. East India Company begins trade in Bengal. The first English factory was set up on the bank of the river Hooghly in 1651. This was the base from which the company's traders, known at that time as factors, operated. The factory had a warehouse where goods for export were stored, and it had offices where company officials sat. As trade expanded, the company persuaded merchants and traders to come and settle near the factory. By 1696, it began building a fort around the settlement. 2 years later, it bribed Mughal officials into giving the company zamindari rights over 3 villages. One of these was Kalikata, which later grew into the city of Calcutta or Kolkata as it is known today. It also pursued the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a firman granting the company the right to trade duty free. What is firman? Firman is a royalty edict, a royal order. Okay. So the company tried continuously to press for more concessions and manipulate exiting privileges. Aurangzeb's firman, for instance, had granted only the company the right to trade duty free, but the officials of the company who were carrying on private trade on the side were expected to pay duty. These they refused to pay, causing an enormous loss of revenue for Bengal. How could the Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, not protest? The British couldn't just come and start business. They needed permission from Indian rulers to building trading posts. They started in Bengal, and in 1651 they got permission to build a factory on the Hooghly River. Slowly they started building forts, collecting taxes and recruiting soldiers. They became more powerful, and local rulers began to feel threatened. How trade led to battles. Through the early 18th century, the conflict between the company and the Nawabs of Bengal intensified. After the death of Aurangzeb, the Bengal Nawabs asserted their power and autonomy as other regional powers were doing at that same. Murshid Quli Khan was followed by Ali Burdi Khan and then Sirajullah as the Nawab of Bengal. Each one of them was a strong ruler. They refused to grant the company concessions, demanded large tributes for the company's right to trade, denied it any right to mint coins, and stopped it from extending its fortifications, accusing the companies of deceit. They claimed that the company was depriving the Bengal government of huge amount of revenue and undermining the authority of the Nawab. It was refusing to pay taxes, writing disrespectful letters and trying to humiliate the Nawab and his officials. The company, on its part, declared that the unjust demands of the local officials were ruining the trade of the company, and trade could flourish only if the duties were removed. It was also convinced that to expand trade, it had to enlarge its settlements, buy up villages, and rebuild its forts. The conflicts led to confrontations. Confrontation means fight, and finally culminated in the famous Battle of Palashi. The Nawab of Bengal Sirajullah didn't like the growing power of the British. He asked them to stop building forts and pay proper taxes. British didn't agree, and soon a battle started, Battle of Palashi. The Battle of Palashi. When Aliburdi Khan died in 1756, Sirajullah became the Nawab of Bengal. The company was worried about his power and keen on a puppet ruler who would willingly to give trade concessions and other privileges. So, what is the meaning of puppet? Puppet, literally a toy that you can move with strings. The term is used disapprovingly to refer to a person who is controlled by someone else. And now, British the companies want a puppet ruler. It tried, though without success, to help one of Sirajuddaullah's rivals become the Nawab. And infuriated, Sirajullah asked the company to stop meddling in the political affairs of his dominion. Infuriated means to make somebody very angry. So, the Sirajullah asked the company to stop meddling in the political affairs of his dominion, stop fortification and pay the revenues. After negotiations failed, the Nawab marched with 30,000 soldiers to the English factory at Kashim Bazar, captured the company officials, locked the warehouse, disarmed all Englishmen, and blockaded English ships. Then he marched to Calcutta to establish control over the company's fort there. On hearing the news of fall of Calcutta, company officials in Madras sent force under command of Robert Clive, reinforced by naval fleets. Prolonged negotiations with the Nawab followed. Finally, in 1757, Robert Clive led the company's army against Sirajullah at Palashi. One of the main reasons for the defeat of Nawab was that the forces led by Mir Jafar, one of Sirajuddaullah's commanders, never fought the battle. Clive had managed to secure his support by promising to make him Nawab after crushing Sirajullah. The Battle of Palashi became famous because it was the first major victory that the company won in India. The promise of riches. The territorial ambitions of the mercantile East India Company were viewed with distrust and doubt in England. After the Battle of Palashi, Robert Clive wrote to William Pitt, one of the principal secretaries of state to the English monarch, on 7 January 1759 from Calcutta. But so large a sovereignty may possibly be an object too extensive for a mercantile company. I flatter myself that there will be little and little or no difficulty in obtaining the absolute possession of these rich kingdoms. Now I leave you to judge whether an income yearly of 2 million sterling with the possession of 3 provinces be an object deserving the public attention.